Well, my name is Disa Karlsson. I work at the Student Services here at Stockholm University. And today we have also Emma from the Department of Education with us today. So I'm just going to start this presentation first and go through some of the things that are general for all admitted students. And that is from like the central offices, and then Emma's going to go through the specifics for you, the admitted to the Department of Education. So the first three parts, I'm just going to talk about a bit what's next now that you're admitted, once you arrive in Sweden, studies at Stockholm University, and then Emma's going to take over. Okay, so let's see what's next. So some of these steps are very specific to the department. So if you need to confirm a seat, if you're conditionally admitted and registration enrollment, Emma's going to go through that. But I can just say you don't need to confirm your seat. I know that. And Emma's going to go through the other details later on. So bear with us. Here's just like a timeline for scholarships and tuition fees. And those of you who have applied for a scholarship on the 28th of April, if you have applied for the Swedish Institute Scholarship, that's when their results are given. And then in the end of April, also if you've applied for the Stockholm University Scholarship, then both the recipients and other applicants are informed of the results. And then after the results of those two bigger scholarships, that it's not until then that we will start sending out invoices to those who are who have to pay the tuition fee but did not receive one of those two scholarships. So you'll have to wait until then. And then on the 1st of June, that's the deadline to pay the tuition fee. And once you've paid that one, that's when you can apply for a residence permit if you need one. And well, a residence permit, if you have a citizenship in a country outside of the EU, EEA, and Switzerland, you need to apply for a residence permit. And that's something they do at the Migrations Agency website. And they actually have a specific webinar on the 27th of April on how to apply for a residence permit for studies. So that's a really good idea for you, for those of you who need to apply for a residence permit, to participate in that one and ask your questions. And well, a lot of questions are now given, of course, due to the coronavirus, how it affects everything. And we have a Q&A on our website that holds all the general information that we know of. And it will be updated as soon as we know more about new regulations or directives from the Swedish government, and when new decisions are taken like centrally from the university. But in addition to that, I think Emma has already notified you about the decision that is specifically for the Department of Education. So you have like both of these to see. But this website, it will be updated regularly, so just check that one and to know a bit more. Okay. So well, we have a few insurances for international students, depending on your status. So this is one for all the fee-paying students, and you will be covered by this insurance regardless if you pay the fees yourself or if you have a scholarship to pay for the fees. So you have it either way. But you will not receive any insurance certificate because you won't need it. When you apply for a residence permit on the Migrations Agency website, you use your notification of selection results from the university admissions. And that one is enough for the Migrations Agency to see that you are insured. So that's enough to use. And if you have any questions about this insurance, you can just send an email to study@su.se and we will answer it. And if you are from an EU, EEA, or Swiss citizen, then you need to remember to order and bring your European health insurance card. because this one gives you access to healthcare in Sweden at the same cost as Swedes. And yeah, it's very important to bring it. So remember that one. And also remember to actually order it and bring it before you travel to Sweden, because we've had students that sometimes it expires while they're in Sweden, or they didn't remember to bring it. Sometimes if they're not registered in their home country, they won't be able to get it. So do it before you leave, so to say. Another thing that is good to know, or that you need to do if you are studying more than 1 year, if you're here for a 2-year program that you guys are, then you need to remember to register at the Swedish tax agency. And in that way, you get a Swedish personal identity number. And once you have that one, you will be entitled to healthcare services and pay Swedish patient fees. And well, life gets a lot easier if you have a Swedish personal identity number. Okay, so I just remembered, I'm not sure if I told you in the beginning, but if you have any questions, you're very welcome to write them in the chat. And depending on what kind of questions they are, we answer them along the way or we answer them at the end. So just so you know. Okay, so here's an average monthly budget. And this one's actually given or inspired by a study in Sweden, because they have a lot of good digital ambassadors that work with this. So this is like an approximation what you could expect to need. But of course, it depends on what kind of accommodation you find and things like that. So it depends a bit, but around 850 euros or $1,000 per month is the approximation that you would need. And a lot of students ask if you're allowed to work during your studies while you're in Sweden, and you are allowed to work during your studies, but there are 2 notes that we usually give in this regard. And one is that it is actually rather hard to find a part-time job if you do not speak Swedish. And due to the pandemic, the works that usually are given to international students are a bit harder to come by, like working in a restaurant and things like that. So that's something to bear in mind if you think you might need to have a part-time job to support yourself, that it's not that easy. And another thing that we also want to point out is that it's since it is a new academic environment and a new study pace, it might not be what you're used to. Even though you can work and study at the same time in your home country, you might not be able to do it in Sweden, or you might be able to do it once you are accustomed and familiar with the study pace here. So I would suggest to not start your studies and working at the same time. Just let the studies have the priority in the beginning. We have still some links here that recommend to look for part-time jobs. And the first one, My Career, that one you'll have access to once you're registered as students. And the other 2, Academic Work and Student Consulting, are not connected to the university, so they're open on the internet to visit and browse. And another thing for those of you who have or need residence permits to study in Sweden, there's a possibility to apply for an extension of this residence permit once you finish your studies. And that's to either search for a job in Sweden or to start your own business. So this is also an option that is very good to know. And we have one link here about being an entrepreneur in Sweden, verksamt.se, to see what it's like. And also a very good opportunity is to participate in one of the career workshops that our general study and career counselors, they held them each semester, and it's specifically targeted for international students. And they go through things like how to write a CV for a Swedish job market, how to find connections, and so on. So it's a very good option to participate in while you're studying. Okay, so this link, su.se/pre-departure, that's like the link where you find all of this information that I just talked about along with other things. So that's a website to really look at when you're new and what to do before you arrive in Sweden. Okay, so just a little bit about housing. There is a recorded housing webinar on the Housing Office website that you can look at, where they go through all the details. So I'm just going to go through it a bit shortly here, just so you have a bit of a heads up. So the application period for the autumn semester 2021 will start on the 18th of May. And the offers will be given based on the date and the time when they have received your application. So it's important to do it as early as possible. And all the rents for the autumn semester will be for the whole semester. So you will need to pay for the whole semester if you get one, even if you arrive later in the semester for your studies. So that's also good to know. And yeah, as I mentioned, they have this webinar recorded and it's available on their website. So that's a good one to look at. Okay, so here are some other recommended websites to look for housing or stand in a queue. So the first one, SSSB, is connected to the student union or the student unions in Stockholm. And it's the largest student accommodation landlord in Stockholm. And it doesn't cost anything to register. So it is recommended to register on their queue as soon as possible. And once you reach, I think it is 90 days, you can park the days. And then you can activate the account and start collecting again in August when you are registered in your courses and when you are a member of the student union. So that's a good option, I think. Another one to look at accommodation is Akademisk Kvart or Bostad Direkt, and also Bostad Stockholm. So these are just some suggestions how to look for accommodation. One thing that to bear in mind when looking for accommodation is that it's not always the distance that makes it. It's not always the closest option that is the one that is the fastest to go to the university. So use the journal planner from our public transport to see how long it actually takes to get somewhere or to get from the possible location of your accommodation to the university. Because me, for example, I actually live 70 kilometers north in a different town, but it only takes just over an hour for me to get to the university because I'm on the right side. So I don't have to go through the city center. So someone living in the southern suburbs, it actually takes almost the same time. Is there any question, Emma?
No, I was just going to say I live in the south end of the city. So I live on the same subway line as the university, but it takes me about the same amount of time as it takes Disa, just because of the distance from to the north. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's a good example. So it's not always the distance. Yeah. Okay. So just to sum it up on housing. So start early. Unfortunately, look out for scams. I guess they're in every country and every city. There are people that are out to try and scam. So look out for that. And don't be too picky. As we mentioned, this with the distance, it's not always the distance that makes it. Maybe you won't find your ideal accommodation from the start, but you find an accommodation that is good enough, and then you can find a better one later on once you're here. So it's, yeah.
And I put the link to the Housing Office webinar in the chat, so you can find it there.
Great. Thank you, Emma. Perfect. So we have the link here again to the student housing website, and you're very welcome to contact Housing Office either for questions about their accommodation that they offer, or also if you need tips and ideas on how to search for housing on your own. They're open for both, so just contact them and they'll help you. Okay, so just a bit about once you arrive in Sweden then. Well, here's one thing that you need to do once you arrive. You need to activate your university account and order your university card. And to activate the account, you need a one-time code. And just before we started this webinar, Emma mentioned that they will provide you with one-time codes, all of you. So you don't need to visit the info center. You will get it from Emma through some Zoom meetings, right?
Because the program will be starting online in August, what we've decided to do instead is that you've each received in the email on Friday the date that there will be a Zoom meeting for your registration group. So you've been divided into different days at this point. So refer to that email because I've divided you myself. So it may not be the same date as somebody you know who's also gotten into the program. And then after you've been registered for courses on that date, I will send you the one-time code after registration. Because we will be registering in early August, there's nothing that you will miss by not having a one-time code over the summer, because the university, the courses, their pages won't be updated until 2 weeks before the courses begin. So you will receive those in August.
Exactly. Perfect. Thank you, Emma. Okay, great. Let's see. So another card, or what used to be a card, but is now an app, is from the Student Union. And if you become a member of the Student Union, they work with like two things. They work both to support and represent students in your education, but they also have a lot of social events and activities for both local and international students. At the moment, it's all online, of course, but usually under normal circumstances, they have things on campus as well. So depending on how it develops, you'll be able to participate in either of them. And another way, or another important thing why it is good to be a member of the Student Union is to have access to discounts on the public transportation system, because you will not get the discounts unless you're a member of the Student Union and have this card. So you need it for that. Okay, so well, at the start of the semester, we will have welcoming events for new international students. We don't know yet which ones will be able to have on campus or not, depending on how the situation evolves. But one thing that we do know that is decided is that the orientation day on the 24th of August, that one will be online. And that's just to make sure that everyone can actually participate. And this is very good, especially for you guys that have a later on-campus planned start. So you can actually participate in this one, even if you're still in your home country. So that's why we chose that. So you'll be able to attend. But we will publish, as long as we have the program, we will publish it on su.se/welcome activities. And of course, once we have the program complete, hopefully in June, we will send out a letter to all admitted students with the program and telling it. So you'll get a heads up about that. So this checklist here, this is basically some of the points that I went through here. This link goes to checklist where it says you need to activate your account, you need to register at your department and attend the welcome activities. So it's basically that one, but it tells a bit more details about it. So that's why we have the link here, so you can see it. Okay, so as I mentioned before, if you're staying more than 1 year, remember to register at the Swedish Tax Agency to get the Swedish personal identity number. And once you have that one, remember to update it in the university system, and also to update it at university admissions. Because there are two different systems, so you need to update it in both. And you can update it either in the university system, you can update it either by visiting InfoCenter or by sending an email to Ladok to the system. But yeah.
Or you can send me an email and I send it on to Ladok. That's usually how they prefer. So you go into the student office in the student building and present it there, or you can just take a photo of the personal identity number that you receive from the document that you receive from them, and I can send it on to have it updated.
Perfect. Thank you, Emma. Okay, so another thing to bear in mind once you arrive is, do you need a Swedish bank account or not? And once you have a Swedish personal identity number, it's fairly easy to get a Swedish bank account. If you don't have a Swedish personal identity number, you can still make a bank account, but of course you need to update it once you have the Swedish personal identity number. But what you usually need to bring to open a bank account without the personal identity number is a certificate to show that you are admitted and the duration of your studies, a valid ID, rental contract or address information, and a residence permit if you are from outside of the EU, EA, and Switzerland. And one bank that many international students use is SEB, just because they are more used to international students. But you can go to any bank, of course.
And I think in the past, it's been easiest for students who don't have a personal identity number to go to SEB to get a bank account. But with the current situation, the one thing to note is that they prefer that you make an appointment to open a bank account. So it's also not really possible to just go to a bank location and open a bank account at this point in time. So keep that in mind for later this fall.
Yeah, that's very good. Thank you, Emma.
Yeah. I did receive a question, and I think I don't have this as one of the topics. It's saying, since the first term will be remote, just to clarify, it's not the full first term for our program. It's the first course. So we will be online through October 31st is the plan. So the International and Comparative Education course will be offered online. Our plan is then to return to on-campus learning November 1st for the subsequent second and third course this fall. And then the second part of that question was, does that mean that the library is closed? And that's not the case. The library is open. It has some more limited hours. I can send you the link to the library website so you can look at their availability right now. But I just thought I'd answer that right now because that, as far as my presentation, I didn't take that up. So.
Yeah, no, I don't have that in mind either. So that's very good. Thank you, Emma. Okay, so it is just the last part, and then I'm going to hand over to Emma. So just studies at Stockholm University, the general. So here's some pictures from the top left one is the main campus, or both the top pictures are from the main campus. And you're more or less on the main campus when you're studying education. I've got one picture on the last from the department as well. The bottom left picture is from Kista Science City. That's where you have computer and system sciences. And the bottom right, Kräftriket, that's where you have Stockholm Business School, mathematics, psychology, I think, as well. And here, the top two pictures, Filmhuset and Garnisonen, that's where you have media studies. And then the bottom left, Alva Nova, is physics. And then you have Bergius Botanic Garden, which is actually a botanical garden that it is part of the university and it's open access. So some parts of it is open free of charge. You can just walk around outside, and some of the greenhouses have a fee to enter, but it's really lovely place, and it's just next to the main campus. Your department is actually the closest department to Bergius, right, Emma? I would say, yeah. Okay, so this is the presentation I found from the department. You have that one? Oh God, I thought about it. Okay, sorry, yes. Guys. You
yes.
I was actually looking for a different picture, but I didn't find it. This was the one that I found. Okay. So yeah, this is where you have the Department of Education. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the academic year, as we mentioned before, it starts in August. So it runs from 30th of August, and then there's actually no break between the autumn semester and spring semester. So it just runs along after each other. And one semester is 20 weeks, and you have 30 credits per semester. And usually say that it's full-time studies is about 40 hours per week to study and lectures. But of course, I mean, it differs depending from student to student how much time you need to spend studying. And also for me, at least, it very much differs depending on the courses, how hard I find them or how easy I find them. So, but it's just an approximation of that. And we have free Swedish language courses for all our international students that you can participate in. And all the classes are during afternoons or evenings, so that you can participate in them at the same time as your studies. As that's a very good option because, as mentioned before, it's hard to find a part-time job or even job later on without knowing a bit of Swedish. And it's also nice just to be able to go into a cafe and actually just order a coffee and some cake to it or something like that. So yeah, that's something to be recommended to participate in. You don't have to do it, but it's an option and it's a good one. Yeah, I think that was it. What I wanted to. Yeah, that's just remembered. You can start registering for the Swedish courses from the beginning of August, and you do it on the link here, su.se/studyswedish. So it's done separately. Here are some suggestions on how to find friends and activities. So we have a Facebook group for new international students. We have the link here. And there's also a link to the student union clubs or associations that are open for all students that you can look at. I'm not sure, Emma, maybe if you can share the link to the Facebook group in the chat.
Yep, they think you already received it, but I can send the link as well. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If that was included, perfect. Great, thank you. Okay, so that was it for my part of the presentation. So hopefully we'll see you all in the autumn here in Stockholm. And here are just some last links on how to read more. So su.se/pre-departure, I would say, is the most important one because that's where you find a lot of good information. So are there any questions right now or should I just stop share? And you can start sharing your presentation, Emma.
Yep. I will stop answering questions in the chat and get back to you guys after my presentation is done. So are you able to stop share?
Okay, I can just, yes, I just saw one question here about dependence. It was sent just to me, so you didn't see it before, sorry. About dependence, if you have a family you bring and if they need a Swedish personal identity number. And well, if you are staying for more than 1 year, then yes, you should apply for a Swedish personal identity number. Also for your kids if you bring them, for example. So yeah.
They'll need that for...
Hopefully that answers.
They'll need that for healthcare, but also to be able to go to school or preschool. It's important. So
exactly.
Again, so I will be presenting a bit more in depth about the program itself. And so I'll be talking a little bit about the Department of Education, the program, give you ideas of what the program will look like for you. Also have a little bit about what happens next from our perspective and ways to connect and get involved even now, and also some tools and tips for this in-between time before you start the program. So within Stockholm University, there's two main areas that the disciplines are organized. And so there's the human science academic area, which is divided in 3 faculties, and our department falls under then the Faculty of Social Sciences. And then as far as where we are located, the orange arrow is where the subway stop is for the university. The main area of campus is the blue oval area. And we are located up there where the yellow star is. So we're sort of on the northern edge of of the campus. We are, however, located behind the Natural History Museum, which is a neat location. And as Disa mentioned, we have the Blue Star is the botanical gardens. So we do have a nice location as far as it's a beautiful place to visit while you're on campus. So the oval area that encompasses sort of the main administrative buildings for the university, as well as the library, the main computer room. So a lot of students end up making that extra walk, but it's easily accessible once you get off the subway to walk there. It takes about 10-15 minutes, depending on how fast you walk. So Disa already shared a building photo, but here's another one of our building. And the pearl is that sculpture there. It was gifted to the department as sort of compensation for being on the edge of campus by the university. And we usually have activities as a department surrounding the pearl every spring. The head of the department goes out and polishes it, and we get presentations. And so it's sort of incorporated in as a mascot, I guess. So the Department of Education also is divided within itself in research and education. So this gives you sort of an idea of research areas of the faculty members at our department. So of course we have a research group in International Comparative Education, but we also have researchers involved in our program that are researching in addition to that and focusing on adult learning, didactics, higher education, history of education, and so on. So it's an interesting group of researchers. And then we also have the PhD program in education, where we also have several alumni who have gone on to after they finish the master's. So the majority of the courses and programs at our department are taught in Swedish. Just to give you a brief overview, we have bachelor level programs that we run, and then we also have bachelor level programs that we run with other departments. We have masters in Swedish in education, and also a program in conjunction with the Department of Sociology. We also run or offer courses for single modules within the teacher education program. But as you'll notice, we don't have the main responsibility for teacher education. There are other departments within the university that focus on teacher education. It's a common misconception about our department, but we basically run within teacher education. The only program we're responsible for is vocational teacher education. Besides courses and programs at the bachelor and master's level, we also have the National School Leadership Training Program, which is a special program for school leaders, school principals, vice principals, who go through training to be able to manage schools. And then we have within the university, the professional development course for university teachers. So that gives you an overview of that. Then as far as what's offered in English, it's much more limited. We have our master's program, and then we offer 2 bachelor level courses, so single courses or modules at the bachelor level. And then there are 7 of the master's level courses that are in the program that are also offered as single modules. So the first semester, you will only be meeting each other, but in the second semester, you will meet students who are maybe in other master's programs or just taking single courses. And also in the first half of the 3rd semester, there will also be other students from outside the program who will be enrolled in those courses. So to give you a breakdown of the program itself, so in year 1 in the autumn term, because the program only begins every autumn, we have a general overview of the discipline in International Comparative Education. There's a theory of science course devoted looking more specifically at theory related to the discipline. There's also educational planning, which is usually a very popular course, looking at how to plan educational systems from the perspective of UNESCO. And it's based off of one of their training courses. In the spring term of year 1, there's education and development, looking at both post-colonial and current trends in education and development issues, globalization education, which is of course very current in our field. And also there's an introduction to educational research methods course. And in that course, which students in the first year are taking right now, you write a tentative plan for your thesis. So it's a chance to test out some of your ideas of what you may want to write your thesis on. Then in year 2, in the autumn term, there are 4 courses. So in the first section of the term, you choose between 2 courses. The current courses on offer are Human Rights and Education or Education for Sustainable Development. These can change. We don't have plans right now to change them, but just to let you know, if a researcher becomes unavailable who is running one of those courses, they can change. And also in the second part of that third term, you can choose between Educational Management and Leadership or Language and Education. And again, those courses can change depending on availability. The last 2 years, we've had these courses, so that hasn't changed. Then the third part of the third term, there's an in-depth methodology course that then builds on the introductory course, and then a specialized literature course where students conduct a literature review in preparation for the last term, which is just devoted to the master's thesis. To give you another visual of what it looks like, so one term is 30 ECTS, which is equivalent to about 20 weeks of full-time study. So for the first term, the International Comparative Education course is then 10 weeks long, and then the 2 subsequent courses are each 5 weeks. So they divide that between the credit points and weeks of study. I can say the last course, because it goes over the winter holiday, it actually ends up being longer, but it evens out to about 20 weeks after taking away the holidays. And then term 2 in the spring, you start out with two 7.5 ECTS courses, and then the methodology course is again 15 ECTS. And then the third term, that's where it breaks down into the 4 sections where you take 4 different courses. So you choose 2 courses in period A, 1 course in period A, 1 course in period B, and then the subsequent in-depth methodology and specialized literature are the same for everyone. And then for the final term, it's only the thesis course that runs 30 CETS for the entire duration. So to give you an idea, as you are a very diverse group of students accepted this year, we also have students from around the world. So these give you an idea of students who are currently in the program in their second or in their first year. And we are very proud of the fact and think it's a huge asset to have such diversity of students. It brings really a great hands-on experience when you're talking about issues of international and comparative education. To give you an idea of what the courses will look like, so there's usually obviously lectures. What we did this past year to address online learning is that the lectures themselves were recorded. And so those were uploaded after the fact. We have to then gain consent from students to actually be able to record the lectures and upload them. So that's a process that we go through after registration. And then there's group work sessions. Those cannot be recorded because the idea there is that you work together and can discuss freely. You can arrange them according to times that maybe suit yourselves in certain situations. And those are only held live. So you have to come to those also, obviously, and then the presentation moment as well. The seminars and workshops are also never recorded. Those are held live via Zoom. And then most of the assignment, because this is a research-based program, is conducting a course paper, so writing your own individual course paper assignment. And sometimes they can include an oral defense. And this is basically to, again, prepare you for writing your master's thesis. We normally have an attendance requirement for our courses. This is, of course, adjusted when we're teaching online. So we don't have, when it's been online, if you are unable to attend, you can then do a written compensation. But they have been having a little less strict requirements with attendance because of being online, but then the students have to do a makeup assignment instead. Other than the course activities, we do a lot of other fun things. We have academic activities. The International Comparative Education Research Group has monthly seminars that are open to the public that we strongly recommend. There's other research groups as well. Adult Learning has monthly seminars in English as well. So that might be a fun group to also join. Usually every autumn, we have a seminar with the University of Jyväskylä on the UN Sustainability Goal number 4 on education, and students can present topics there. We usually have a visit in the autumn, and I think unfortunately this will be canceled this year, to the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning in Hamburg. And then we've already begun planning for next February to have our joint symposium with the University of Tokyo, where students can present research papers or topics to each other. It's been a great tool for testing out master's thesis topics or just presenting to each other, and then receiving a certificate of participation that can be utilized in the future. And then usually every June, and of course this year we had to cancel, we do a trip to Paris. Students pay their own way, but we organize visits to the International Institute for Educational Planning. Again, the educational planning course is based on one of their courses that they run, and also to UNESCO headquarters and OECD. Then beyond the more academic activities, we also have social activities. Within the program, we usually we run a start of term gathering, so it's a chance for the second year and first year students to meet. We did it online last fall and it worked great. Then hopefully, if we are on campus again, we usually have a walking tour of Old Town, Gamla stan in Stockholm, and that's usually a pretty fun thing to do together. So if we are able to gather in November, it might be cold, but it might be fun to do. And the program coordinator, Associate Professor Ulf Fredriksson, runs that. Then we usually have an end of term for the winter gathering. In the spring, we celebrate Waffle Day, bring waffle iron and waffle mix and eat together in the student cafeteria. And then we have an end of term, the spring term gathering. And usually the first year students organize something for the second year students who are finishing the program. One of the neat things that happened in this time of being online, there's been some innovation. So the students in the first year who have been online, they created a cohort cookbook. So we all shared recipes from our home countries, which was quite fun. And they've also started a magazine. So each issue is a page about a student who introduces themselves and has fun information about themselves, introduces themselves to the group, and also faculty and staff, myself included, have also given some tips and on different areas like travel or books or movies or things like that. So it's been fun to see, even in this time of being apart, trying to come together in different ways. Other activities that we do have a mentoring program. So there are 4 faculty members that offer mentoring. They usually meet 2 to 3 times a semester, but the students meet more often. It's focused on academic writing and improving academic writing skills among students. And usually it's groups of both first and second year students who share advice and experience, but also a chance for them to ask questions outside of the classroom as well about academic writing. In the autumn term, I organized together with the exchange coordinator a seminar on, or an information meeting really, on internship possibilities for the summer or post-program internships, exchange studies, which usually we recommend during the 3rd term of the program is the best term to do that. and also on networking. I'll probably organize that in November, so hopefully that we can meet in person. There's also within that meeting, we also talk about Erasmus Plus traineeships for the summer. I organize alumni panels so that you can meet alumni from the program. We had in December a panel of alumni who've gone on to PhD studies around the world. We had 7 different alumni come to that, and then I'm organizing 2 more in May for other work career opportunities that people have gone on to. We also have an alumni network through LinkedIn. There's also, we have our own group. So once you are registered, you can join that. And then also there's the Stockholm University Alumni Network is also very alive, and lots of events go on. So as far as what happens next, as Disa and I already mentioned, and is in the information you receive, you do not need to confirm your place, but we do ask that if something changes, whether it be a change in circumstance which prevents you from joining the program, or if you do not receive a scholarship, please let us know if you're not able to attend. It's very helpful for us to know in advance. We appreciate knowing from you directly. And you can just email me personally. As was in the information I sent out last Friday, you'll have the full term course information no later than July 2nd. That includes course schedules, literature lists, course description. So those are published on the external website. So you'll be able to access those before you are registered for courses. So for this program, we do registration for all courses, all 4 semesters internally. We just find that that makes it easier for you. And so for the first term, I sent out information. You've been split up into groups. And so we'll have that over Zoom. I can probably send out more information on exact times in June before the summer holidays. I also try to look at time zones of people once we know a little bit closer, so that I can meet with you when it's convenient for you. So after you've been registered, if you do not have a Swedish personal identity number, I will send you out a one-time code, which you can then use to activate your student account. You can look in the useful information document that was attached to the emails that I sent out on Friday for more information on these points. Just one second. So ways to connect, and Disa already mentioned that there is the new International Students at Stockholm University Facebook group. I saw that some of you have already started connecting there, and you may have started a WhatsApp group, which is great. So go in on Facebook, and if you just type in new International Students at Stockholm University, you can find that group. There's also a group that's been around, I think, since 2015. Of the program. It's student-led. It's called the ICE Forum. You can search for in Facebook, or I sent you the link in the useful information document. So you can connect. There's former and current students in that group, and it's completely student-run. We are not involved, but it's also a chance maybe to get other advice on finding housing, or maybe even purchasing course literature from each other. It's been a good way for people to connect within the program. One of the other ways to connect and get involved now is that the International and Comparative Education Research Group has some upcoming colloquia or seminars that you are very welcome to attend. They are April 27th, May 3rd. I'm going to just stop the video there. Okay. And so on May 3rd, one of the alumni from the program, Brendan Mulhall, will be presenting his PhD thesis research. So that might be a fun one to attend. And then in June, there will be 2 PhD defense, and both Maria and Anthemis are former master's students who are in their final weeks of their PhD program now. And you are also welcome to attend. They will be via Zoom. And so if you go to the main page of the department, and and to events. Disa has the link to that in the chat. She can send it to you. Then as far as tools or what to think of between now and starting the program, one of the things that comes up for many of us, this might be the first time that we're writing academically in English. There is a great MOOC, which is a mass online course that you can join at any time. In academic writing in English, that's one that we recommend. I'm sure that there are lots of other tools online that you can refer to. But if you're starting this program without having written academic papers in English, maybe this is something to look at in preparation for the program start. There's also a selection of theses of former master's students. You can go into that link there. Disa will send you that link. And maybe look into what other people have written their theses on. Also an idea would be, why not begin studying Swedish now? There's lots of online tools. I didn't have a chance to send that link to you, Disa. Maybe you can copy it, I don't know, from there. But in Study in Sweden, there is a link on learning Swedish, and they have both online tools that are free that you can join, or there's also advice on paid tools that you can use to learn Swedish. So that might be something to look at as well. So as Disa mentioned, number one tip that we can give is do look for housing early. And use those tools. I know it will be a little bit more challenging for students who will be arriving later in the semester to maybe find housing, because the main housing office at Stockholm University will issue housing for the full term. So that means that you have to pay from the start of the semester, which I understand is an issue. But you may want to then look into other options, or if you are able to travel to Sweden and start being in Stockholm at the start of term, those the Stockholm University Housing Office may still be an option for you. Also, if you're a non-EU citizen, do start applying for your residence permit as soon as you've accepted your scholarship, if you receive one, or once you've received confirmation that the university has received your payment of tuition. Even if we're starting to be online November 1st, just keep in mind that it's good to apply early anyway, because you'll have to go in for fingerprinting. Yes, Disa.
Just one thing to mention is that you can't apply more than 3 months in advance.
Okay.
Because you need to show your finances.
Right.
So you need to start early, yes,
but not too early.
More than 3 months.
Good point.
Not too early.
Thank you, Disa. That's a very good point. So not more than 3 months before. And again, what I mentioned in the useful information is that it's most likely that you'll receive a residence permit that will be issued no later than 2 weeks before the program will start on campus November 1st. That they usually issue it so that people have time to enter and make themselves figure out their housing situation before they start. So don't worry, you will receive a residence permit with enough time to get here without any trouble. One of the students who is now graduated from the program, but I thought it was still really good advice, is to think about your interests early on. The field of international comparative education is very vast, as you'll see in those theses, the theses that have been written before. So having an idea of what you want to write about, or testing out new ideas every time there's a course assignment, that's a really good advice. And also to keep in mind that Stockholm is a major city, it can be quite expensive. So just make sure you are prepared for that, plan for that. And also the winter can be dark, but it is also extremely lovely the rest of the year too. So it might be dark then, but it will get better. So that is what I had to present. We really look forward to seeing you. Hope to see you in August. I see that my chat is blinking. now. And I can see, I think there was one question here. So for those of you who don't need to apply for a residence permit or just wondering generally, when should you arrive in Stockholm? This was a good question. Again, we would advise at least 2 weeks before we start on campus is a good idea, just to get yourself situated before the courses will resume November 1st. Another question was, did the students who registered last year have all their activities online so far? Yes. We had planned to return to campus November of last year, and that unfortunately didn't happen due to COVID-19. So I can say that our department has been very good about updating information early on about when things are going to be online or on campus. I think we are at this point hoping, certainly, absolutely, to be able to begin on campus November 1st. Of course, we also don't know what's going to happen between now and then. So we will keep you informed. Our department leadership has been really good about informing early on, but we don't know at this point. So let's see.
Yeah. There was one question here that I see in my chat about the residence permit and when to apply for it. And usually, as we mentioned, do it as early as possible, but no more than 3 months in advance. So that would be October, November. No, I'm wrong way. Sorry, October, September, August. So beginning of August, right?
Yeah, beginning of August.
Yeah. But also, I would definitely advise to participate in the webinars with the migrations agency on the 27th of April, I think it was, because they then will know what kind of decisions they make. Because, for example, last year or during the last year, they decided that you need to have at least 50% or more planned on-campus education in order to receive a residence permit. But if they will prolong that decision or not, we don't know.
Which I don't think
it depends a bit.
So much on this program, since we're planning to start November 1st, that still is 50% of the semester. So I don't, I mean, most likely you will not have any problem. But I wouldn't, I doubt that we will know anything more by August 1st. I mean, I think it would be later in the semester, let's say September, mid-September, if something happens and we realize that we need to be online further, that information will be given after the point you should have applied for your residence permit. So do apply August 1st or around August 1st, because it's also, we're not the only program in Sweden that's applying for residence permits to start November 1st. Most of the larger departments, and we are one of them within Stockholm University, are planning to resume to on-campus learning November 1st. So you are a large group that will be applying to come for a program start in November 1st. So don't delay. Do apply around August 1st so that you're within that 3-month window.
Yeah.
And you do need to
exactly
residence permit from abroad. You cannot come into Sweden as a visitor and apply. You have to apply from abroad to be able for it to go through. So.
Yeah, I think there's only one exception to that, and that's Switzerland.
Right.
So, very specific. Yeah.
And as far as I know, we don't have any Swiss citizens in this group.
No. Okay. Oh well. Good.
Yeah.
Good to know. Well, that's I would also advise that, and also usually you apply for a whole year, so then you would have both the spring and the half the autumn semester on campus. So. But look at the webinar with the migrations agency, I would say. and advise with them.
And then my next question was if there's student exchange programs. Yes, so for the third term, it is possible to apply for exchange student or exchange programs for that third term. More information on that will be given in November though, because there's both departmental exchange agreements and then there's Central Stockholm University agreements, and it depends on there's a lot of different caveats to that question. So we will cover that in November. So the UNESCO seminar, that's being, so we usually do a visit to UNESCO Paris. The Paris trip has been canceled for June 2021, but we are hoping, of course, that June 2022 we can visit UNESCO in June next year. Then I think the UNESCO course question somebody asked is that the educational planning course is still in as part of the program. So, so does registration need to be done before arriving in Sweden? Yes, it has to be at the start of August because the program starts at the end of August. So you will find in the information I sent to you on last Friday, the date that you should be available. And like I said, in mid-June, sometime in June, I'll update you with exactly which time your group will be registering via Zoom.
That's a good one. I have a question here.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Can I just say one more thing? If you have a personal question, you are always welcome to email me directly, and we can take it up in that way. Yes, Disa, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. It was one question here that it was sent to my chat, but I think you're the best to answer that. And that is, what kind of feedback do you have received from the students that up until now have done their master online? How was it to connect with other people? How did they experience this?
So I would say that because the group work sessions are arranged in such a way that students can also meet in different timing, and I think that they've been able to become a group, that they are a cohort just like when we are on campus. I would say the feeling of being on campus is also, I think, optimal because you are then in the same time zone and you can meet together. I would say that the one thing that has been hard, that was hard in the beginning, and this is just to be honest, is that for students, because the seminars and workshops and group work sessions and group work presentations, that if you have trouble with internet, it is hard to participate. If you're in a different time zone and you have difficulty connecting to internet, that has been hard. So I think for those students who began the program last fall from abroad with a poor internet connection, that was very hard for them. But that didn't take away from the group work sessions or, you know, being able to connect. It was just harder to keep in touch in that way. But I think that they've done a phenomenal job of finding different ways to connect, different ways to meet. We do have within each cohort, after the first session, we start organizing so that each cohort, they elect two representatives for their cohort. So those two people kind of also create a way of communicating to the whole group. And they meet with myself and the program coordinator at least 3 times a semester to bring up issues from the group. So I do think that they've been successful in creating a group environment.
That's very good. Okay, that's all the questions that I can see right now in my chat. Can you see any more questions for you?
I don't see any more in my chat either.
Oh,
really great that so many of you could come today. Thank you so much. And you know,
thank you too.
Yes, so you can also email us if you have more questions. Sorry, Disa.
Yeah, Yeah, no worries. No, that was just the same that I thought to mention. So if you have specific questions about the program and the courses, send an email to Emma. And if you have questions that are more general and related to residence permit or something like that, just send an email to study@su.se. And me and my colleagues will answer your questions. So yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay, so no more questions now? No?
There was one question, how many people were admitted this year? There are 65 of you admitted in this admission round.
Yeah, so biggest portion or the majority of you guys were actually participating in this webinar. That's great.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that's it. If there are no more questions, so thank you all for participating. And as mentioned, just send us an email if you have any questions and we'll answer them as best as we can. Thank you.
Thank you.